Hey legends, welcome back to the Mason Cox Show. Plenty happening this week. We've got Retro Round, and we're going to rate some jerseys, whether they're good, bad, or who really cares. And then we've got the big game of the week, Essendon versus West Coast. Yes, you heard that correct, Essendon versus West Coast. And a few injuries for the Magpies out there, so there's going to be a bit in this one. So settle in, let's get into it. Okay, let's get into it. Without further ado, welcome, Braden.
Oh, g'day, Mason. I just want to get into this VFL because you got a little, I don't know if you've noticed, but your eyes got a little shiner going on there.
Yeah, there's 4 stitches in there. You're going to just open her right up.
Chicks love the stitches, Mason.
You know, I've actually got 2 black eyes going right now.
On the dual.
I've got the dual. I had to match up the other one this week. So, yeah, I've got the 4 stitches. So, a bit of a different look this week.
That's cool. I reckon it looks good on you. You got to dent that thing back into shape, Mace, now. What's your clanger this week? Because I saw you at the World Cup.
Yes, the World Cup. So my girls, the USA women's national team was playing Sweden this weekend, right? And I was like, oh, man, 7 o'clock game, hyped up. You know, USA is one of the touted winners. So surely we couldn't lose this thing, right? 0-0 the whole way through. And I'm going, I'm a bit stressed here. Going into overtime, then double overtime, and then penalty shootout. And I was like, if there's one thing you can beat someone at, it's penalty shootout. It's essentially a crapshoot. And I'm in a full gear. I'm in a cowboy hat, mullet, pit vipers, USA jumper. Like, I don't think you would have recognized me, bar the tallness. And essentially full confidence rolling into this joint and left there with my head held very low. It was not good. We ended up losing in penalties, almost like it was a fingernail difference.
That Hawkeye was like just a mill in it.
Oh, it was ridiculous. And even live, everyone was so confused and it was just chaos. And I was sitting next to the crazy Swedes that were like the cheer group behind the goal. And it was such a good vibe.
I feel like they're so polite though.
They were so nice. One guy came up to me and goes, gosh, they don't say there's winners and losers in sport. But the real winner today, it's soccer.
Oh, shut up, bro.
That's it. This is a penalty shootout. I'm like, can you fuck off?
You'd say that if you won. Yes. If you're like lost, you're like, fuck soccer.
The real winner soccer today. I was like, can you just get out of my head? Oh, man. I think he was wearing one of the Viking helmets too. It's just brought it all up together.
Yeah, nice.
But I've got to ask this question because I was wearing this ridiculous outfit. Let's say you're a supporter of whatever sport it is and you go watch your team play. If your team loses after that, like, and you're wearing in a ridiculous outfit, do you just rock that out knowing you're just going to get trolled out the door? Or do you just kind of take it off, tuck it in, maybe take the jumper off, just act like a normal human walking out? Everyone's like, no, hold on. That guy was a total dick walking into this joint.
Strutting in. Number 1 seed. Here we go. Yeah, I think you just got to get with another group of losers. If you can just be all losers together, losers in numbers.
Yeah.
The Pit Vipers, they look good. I reckon another little sub-clanger was the broadcast. It's like, show some replays of this thing. Like one of the biggest penalty moments ever, and they don't show the VAR in the stadium.
Yeah.
And then
everyone was lost. Everyone in the stadium's like, what happened?
Yeah, and like commentators are looking at the referee and she just starts waving her arms. It's like, does that mean no goal? Does that mean game's over? Does that mean like goal?
Well, what happened actually is she got hit in the head with a footballer. So maybe she was concussed. We don't know. So I didn't see the concussion protocol for the umpires. I don't know if they have doctors over there, FIFA, but sort that out.
She got hit flush. And I was like, because I didn't see her get hit.
Oh, no.
And she just kept rubbing her nose.
Yeah,
I was like, mate, get a tissue or something. And then they showed the replay and she almost got dented in.
She hit a few times in the game.
But they just trust the shit out of that technology, hey? Because it was a millimeter in it.
Yeah, that and offsides and everything else. It's all VAR stuff now. It's just,
I feel bad for that keeper.
You think we'd be able to figure out the whole, thing with the post by now, but soccer's got it sorted. Same thing with cricket.
Well, at least they got VAR because, it would have just been BT going, boy, oh boy,
wowie, oh boy, oh boy.
I'm going to go the Jake Paul-Nate Diaz fight.
Huge.
And I feel like, Jake Paul was really lifting his weight and kind of carrying the promotion for these two guys because
it's a bit more of a character.
And I love Nate Diaz. I'm a big UFC fan, more MMA than boxing. But, I feel like Jake Paul's doing a lot for all of these sports and the attention that he brings to it. But he rolls into the fight sitting on a tank. You know how much effort it's probably got to be to organize a tank to like.
How do you get that in?
It's crowd control. It's imagine the OH&S on getting a tank rolling down the street, and then you got to sit on top of it, and people will be freaking out thinking they're going to World War III. So he comes in on the tank. Then they cut to Nate Diaz. Yep. So what's he organized? He's probably organized something pretty cool. He walks in just wearing a hoodie on his phone. Just couldn't give a shit.
Playing Wordle or something
for
the day.
He didn't give a shit about the whole thing. He's like, I'll fight anyone. Just give me money and I'll just rock up and just punch heads. And it's just like, I don't even think he's that good anymore. Sorry to all the Nate Diaz fans out there.
Wow,
but his head can still take a good punch. Like it was like, he's going the distance. No matter what.
10 rounds, I think it was.
Yeah, and he just got his head punched in nonstop. But he just keeps taking the checks. And now he wants to go back to the UFC, and Jake Paul wants to face him in MMA, which that's a different ball game.
Yeah, I think he's got him there.
Yeah, it's a completely different ball game. But one thing, Jake Paul used to be a wrestler in college, like a good wrestler in college. So it's like, it's not just like get the takedown and win. So if he can kind of stay off his back, because I reckon Nate Diaz just submits him.
Yeah.
But, that'll be an interesting one, but it'll be interesting to see if they can get this money. Jake Paul's taking it to the UFC. He's got a little feud with Dana White going on. And he's a rep for the PFL, which is like, they love dishing out money. They have like a fight night where they give all the champions $1 million a pop.
Wow. What am I doing playing footy?
Well, it looks like you've been playing MMA over the weekend.
Seriously, it does. I look worse than they do. All right, we'll get into the games this week. First one, off the rank, Bulldogs versus Richmond. Bulldogs have a big win. Big W.
Geez, you thought, both teams a lot on the line. Bulldogs, bit flaky, up and down. Lost the one to GWS last week in Ballarat. And needed a win, and they just came out in convincing fashion, and it was over pretty quick. Like it was, I think it was like the first quarter was like 51-7.
They kicked 9-2 in the first quarter. 9 goals to Richmond's 2. So it's a hot start, you could say.
Which is really deflating. Jamara,
he kicked it back. He kicked 4 in the first, and he gets 5 overall.
Every time you kick 5, you get a celebration, a little sound effect that we make. Jamara Ugelhagen. There's not many things that you can play around with that.
Don't know. I'll have to think about it. We'll think about it. But
send it in. Put it in the comments.
Please do. There's something I want to take out of this, because there's a man named Caleb Daniel who's on the other end of the spectrum as far as height in the AFL, right? And there was a moment in this game early on, I want to say, where he had gone forward. The ball got kicked into him. Obviously, huge target inside 50. And ironically, the person he's playing on is called Short.
Well, Short's not a big bloke either.
And Daniel, the short man that Daniel is, takes a contested mark on Short and ends up kicking the goal. And I just want to give a massive shout out, because Caleb Daniel taking contested mark are two things that I don't think go one and one together. I mean, it's him in the contested possession game, in and under and all that stuff, but taking contested clunks inside forward 50, Caleb Daniel, he can do it all.
Yeah, and didn't he land that, like the bump on Sean Darcy earlier in the year?
Yeah, he did. Knocked him down.
He plays bigger than he is. He's bigger than he is.
He's got leverage. He's got leverage, He gets you at the waist.
He's got the helmet. It gives him the confidence to go out there and just smash it around. Now, Bont, we're talking about a freak. And we're talking about the Brownlow medal race. Things are
shifted a bit.
Things are heating up there because, geez, the Bont is coming home strong, and obviously Nick's going to miss a little bit of footy.
We'll get into that.
But the Bont had, I think it was 31, kick 3. It's like, mate.
Tagged, went forward, kick 3.
How do you do it? Like, you just look at some of these guys that rip it up. We'll get to Toby's game for GWS later on too. It's just like some blokes.
You can try to tag them and they're still going to get a decent game. It's like if you tag them, it's like, okay, you lose a man, but they still have a good game rather than a great game maybe. So you still lose a person, but like Bont he's going to be unstoppable. Like you can put him in the back line. Shit. I mean, like you put him as a key defender.
He'll probably go down as one of the best, if not the best, Bulldogs player of all time.
Yep. I can agree with that. Very easy.
It's crazy. The amount of like best and fairest that he's got, he just racks them up there at the Bulldogs.
He's one of the nicest guys I've ever met too.
He is.
Yeah, he's seriously such a classy human.
Now, I think another little talking point is Jack Rewalt. Now, people love retiring these blokes once they hit 30. The Grim Reaper starts sneaking up on them. And no, except for you got a 2-year contract. Now, I don't know if it's really fair. He seems to be still out there competing, kicking goals.
Yeah.
And when you get to that stage in your career, you're like, okay, they've got Tom Lynch in. He'll be the big number one key guy, and I'll just roam around cherry picking little bags of goals here and there. Poor bloke just has to do it one out all year because Tom Lynch goes down. I reckon give him another year. His leadership.
Reward for effort.
Yeah, his leadership. Surely that's invaluable to a team that's, trying to rise up.
For sure.
But yeah, I think it's back off him.
Maybe what you do is you have him as a coach and then mid-season draft him if you need him.
That's a good call.
There you go. So then he can train with the boys all year, still be a coach to them. And then if, a few of the boys get injured early on, whoever it is, and you go, Jack, we need you.
That's a very good
mid-season draft. Here we are.
Team's got to start doing stuff.
Just saying. Well, there's other people that were not playing. We got Dusty, obviously Koch from soreness, and then Dylan Grimes also ruled out. So they did have quite a few guys that were out this week, but they also have played the two talls, Soldo and Nank, which have had usually a really good track record, but unfortunately lost this week. They did dominate hit-outs, but they couldn't convert.
Now, you talk about someone that wasn't playing, Mace. There was an incident during the game.
Oh, my gosh. This is ridiculous.
Where Picket was touched by a fan in the crowd, kind of tapped on the back. He took a bit of issue to it, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
This happens, but it normally happens for more positive stuff. It's like, that's my player, and you tap him on the back, go get him, and, the positive stuff. How did you see kind of this incident?
Fans can't touch players, right? Like, that's straight line. Can't do that. No matter if you're the opposition or you're, the fan of the current team that you're talking to, whatever it is, there is a boundary that needs to be placed. And the IFL, I'm sure, will sanction this guy somehow. But Pickett, gets slapped on the shoulder a few times from the Bulldogs player, and he turns around and actually slaps the guy's drink out of his hand and spills it. So, but yeah, I mean, we've talked about it on this podcast, right? If someone storms the field, you cross that white line, homeboy. You're going to get nailed. You're going to get taken out, which is weird because actually so back to this USA game, I was looking at the edge of the boundary and it said maximum penalty of $8,000 for running on the field. And I thought $8,000 is, it's a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. But I feel like if you made a viral video, you could definitely make $8,000 back pretty easily, I was kind of like, no jail time, no, it's just like $8,000.
$8,000 hardly pays for the beer that he knocked out of the bloke's hand.
There was one of those things that you can't do it. Like, as a fan, I'm sure he probably maybe had one too many beers, whatever it is. And I don't know, for some reason thought putting a hand over and tapping him on the shoulder was appropriate. I don't know. And I hope that the people around him realized that and pulled him back into place. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, someone grabs, someone hit, it's tapping the shoulder turns into someone hitting someone, turns into what it is, and it's a weird thing where I look at now, like having to play VFL over the weekend and people coming in at quarter time and halftime on the field and all that kind of stuff. And I remember my first game, I thought that was really weird. I was like, there needs to be some kind of boundary. Like, people just can't come up and just, someone could come up with you with a fucking knife and if you're going well, whatever it is. So it's become more and more professional, I think. At this point, sport and fan interaction, they're trying to really make that as close as possible. Like, you look at, courtside seats at basketball games and stuff like that, they're right there. And the IFL just needs to make sure that there is definitely a line in the sand whenever it comes to that interaction.
It's just sad because you don't want to take away the positive interactions because of one negative interaction, and what you say with the VFL is very true. I always think that, and you kind of just trusting people not to. And it only takes one bad apple or one bad incident for it to all change. So, I'd hate to see something change, especially the positive parts of it, because one negative happened. So, yeah, I think it's going to have to be, annoyingly, this gray area.
Over the weekend, it was like every quarter time, I was getting asked to sign footballs and take photos. And I'm like, I'm in the middle of a game.
They really don't care, do they?
Know how to make that more clear by the situation we're both in.
That's what happens when you're going back to your position and stuff, and it's like, hold my kid. I take a photo. It's like, okay.
What? All right, we'll get into the next round. We've got Essendon versus West Coast. This is a thriller. I was watching this before our game, and I was blown away that Essendon almost got pipped by the West Coast Eagles. But then I think what happened, the Eagles are going, whoa, no one draft pick.
Oh, no.
Whoa. Pump the brakes.
That's a joke. He's doing that for comedic purposes.
No, they're actually really good. Eagles were really good on the day. And they almost had it. They almost got it at the very end. And Langford had a little over-the-top goal. And then Oscar Allen, question marks around whether or not he was blocked. But as we know, umpires swallow the whistle whenever it comes to the last minute. So nothing was called.
And McGovern back, bit of leadership down back, steady the ship. Yeah, it's a bit heartbreaking for West Coast. I think Simo has been, a bit emotional up in the box of late too. So it's good to see that, people that question him and like his amount of care for this team. It's like you see things like that and it's just like, get off him. He's trying.
He's had a rough year. Yeah. Like he's done the best of what he's had.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a real hard one to judge. Essendon, oh my goodness, getting out of jail, especially a home game. Like, any Western-based team on their day can beat anyone over in Perth.
Yeah.
But to have it here, I think one out of this that needs a little shining light.
What you got for us?
Beep, beep.
Who's that?
Carl Langford, the Ford.
The Ford. Kicks a bagger.
He's got to be one of, if not the most underrated forward in the competition. He had 40 goals going into this game, kicked another bag of 5, 45 for the year so far, and no one talks about it.
No one seems to know.
I feel like it's so harsh.
Hey, Carl, we got your back, my bro. We got your back.
Get around him. Make a bit of noise for him, but yeah, it was a crazy good game. I think the stat was like West Coast kicked 7 of the last 9 or something crazy. Yeah. So it's like they came home super strong and it was just unlucky that they got pipped in the end. There was a moment, and being the resident ruckman of this podcast,
yes.
I mean, I used to be pretty good back in
the under 5s or something, like Oz kicks?
I played one season for the Tatura Bulldogs.
Wow, yeah. Tatura, shout out.
I'm sure they'll be listening. Whoever was my teammates.
That in that town.
I didn't learn any of their names. I was only there for a minute. There was late in the game, there was a ruck contest. It was just a ball up in the middle of the ground.
Yeah.
And it was the rucks were kind of standing off a bit, off the contest.
Yeah.
And the umpire kind of lobbed the ball instead of directly up, like you meant to, towards them.
Yeah.
And they kind of came in a little bit, and then it went over their head about 2 meters. Went to Essendon midfielder, handballed it through the contest, bombed it long, kicked the goal as a result. Pretty costly in the end.
Yeah.
Now,
you're asking me for rulings of the AFL?
Yeah, would you? I get that he's trying to lob it more towards them, but they're probably thinking I'm going to run into the contest.
Exactly.
So
the whole thing is like, so umpires, whenever, as a ruckman, whenever you see an umpire, right, you can be the guy's 10 meters off because someone wants to try to jump into you. Usually you don't allow him a free run and jump at it, right? So you kind of like try to half the distance or something. And you expect the umpire to throw it above his head. Straight up. Umpire, ball up, not a ball forward, not a ball side, not a ball behind, ball up. So you expect him to throw it up. But for some reason, as of recently, they've kind of thought it's better to throw towards where the ruckmen are standing. But a lot of times you kind of, manipulate positionings to get better position or front position or back position, depending on where the umpire is standing. But if he throws it to a direction, then that doesn't fucking matter.
All out.
Yeah, it's essentially just ball wherever it goes. So it's this interesting thing, and it happened over the weekend. It was a costly kind of situation, I guess, in the game that didn't go well for one of the teams. But yeah, it's an interesting one because I feel like every once in a while you do kind of see it, and you're wondering, maybe it's a mistake. Obviously not every catapult, throw in is the same distance and perfect. But
it's not a fine art.
Yeah, it's not a fine art, and every bounce doesn't go straight up, as we all know. But I feel like it's something that is very easy to do. To throw it straight up.
Yeah, the throw.
You know what I mean? Like, that's, if all the things the umpire has to do, I feel like that's the simplest. So I don't know if it's been told by them to start doing that by the IFL or what's happened, but seeing it over the weekend, I was a bit livid.
Well, now it's a talking point, and now they'll sharpen up, I'm sure.
Sure the IFL's all good with it. Well, the Essendon's got a run home of GWS, North, and Collingwood. So GWS away is going to be a very hard one for them because GWS obviously still in the hunt for the 8. So it's going to be a bit of a rough trot, and they've got us at the very end of the year, which is going to be a thriller.
It's going to be a sellout, surely.
Yeah, and Eagles have now only won 4 of the last 45 games in Melbourne. A little fun fact for you.
That's rough.
That's very
You
rough.
guys were one of them.
We were one of them, as you mentioned, at Marvel. Yes, thanks for reminding us. Now, Adelaide versus the Suns over in Adelaide. The Suns needed this one to still make it into the top 8, and unfortunately, the sun has set, Braden. My boys are out. They're not going to make it. I needed to fill in with someone else. I had full faith in them all year long, and I was hyped up on the Suns train. I was choo-chooing all the way down to the station. Well, we passed the station. Unfortunately, we didn't stop at the final 8.
You and Stewie Jew are going to have to catch up for a beer, just mourn your loss.
Yeah, well, maybe learn how to play cricket while we're at it. Who knows?
Now, it was it was one of those ones where it was like they tried. They really tried. They were sticking in there. Luckily for them, Tex only kicked 2 because that always helps.
Charlie also, which we will get into here soon.
It shakes up the Coleman race, but, Adelaide pretty much did what you expected and what they needed to do because they are still in the finals.
And they came out hot. Adelaide kicked 5-2 to 0-3 in the first quarter, so it was just a bit of a catch-up game for the Suns. And they were, at one point, they were 10 points away. So it wasn't like it was an absolute blowout the whole game, but I love this. The O'Brien versus Witts Ruckman battle for Ruck round.
Love the bigs.
Oh, love the bigs. And it was a 41-39 hit outs. It was a very contested game between the two of them. And they're two bulky big boys, and you just love whenever they face each other because it's just going to be Ruckman just versus Ruckman and what you want to see as a big fella.
Could we ever get 2 plumbers in the one game? Is that unheard of?
Had to be pissing down rain.
Just a million stoppages.
And VFL. Tex, though, like you said, he kicked only 2 goals. And Charlie, we'll get into how many he kicked on the weekend because if Charlie kicks a bag, it's pretty much done and dusted. But we'll get to that later on. And the Suns, unfortunately, they lost. But Adelaide, Phil Thorpe was injured and Will Powell also injured for the Suns. Now, Phil... I always want to say Phil Thorpe. I don't know why I want to say Phil Thorpe.
It's the thrill.
Phil Thorpe was injured.
That was better. That was way better. Nailed that one.
Nailed that one.
Tell us about your boy, James Borlase.
Yes, James Borlase, debuted this weekend. You best believe 18 touches, 7 contested, 8 intercept possessions, 9 marks, and 4 tackles. You don't want to know why this guy's an absolute gun? Because his dad, Daryl, played 246 games, won 4 premierships, Port Adelaide back to Sanford. And his mama, Jenny, she was part of the Australian team in netball. He's got blood in him. He's got that athlete blood in him. He's a gun.
Big units.
196, 2 centimeters, rolling around. Oh, I don't know how Adelaide missed out on this fella. Wait, no, hold on. I think he was part of that little program where they can somehow pull in people from the area, whatever it is. And then it's kind of made me thought, though, right? If your parents are athletes, are you just naturally born to be an athlete? Because I looked at the soccer on the weekend. I'm going back to this. Dennis Rodman's daughter was playing for the U.S. women's team. And I just thought in my mind, I said, you know what? Maybe it's just, you're just a freak athlete. You've got it in your genetics. You got the blood. Just choose a sport and run with it.
Yeah. I think you'd have the ability. It's just whether you've got the application. Yeah, whether you want to do it.
Whether you actually want to do it. Yeah.
Have you seen him? Geez, Bucks' kids are turning they're genetic freaks.
Oh, yeah. They're going to be, if they play footy, look out.
But that's the thing. It's whether they want to. All these poor kids getting crowbarred into footy, father, son.
One of them's doing racing, actually. Yeah. But James, shout out to you, James. Well done on the debut. We love a debutante. Absolutely love him. I did mention this. Will Powell injured and structured off after coming down on his leg. That's a big out for the Suns. And one of them that I think felt like maybe that was the thing that goes, this year's done.
Yeah. Prayers up to him. Hopefully it's one of those ones that you get it sorted in the off season, rest, recover, and come back fresh.
Have a few bintangs up in Bali, my brother. Now, Geelong versus Port.
This is a cracker.
At GMHBA.
You could have almost given this game of the round.
Yeah, it is.
A bit more on it.
Well, there's a bit on this one because Port obviously now top 4. They've lost 3 in a row. And there's a bit of, not necessarily panic stations, but people are kind of, after winning 13 straight, and then losing 4 in a row, people are going, what's changing? What's going on?
It's a lot on both of these teams because, I feel bad for Port because they were right in it up to their eyeballs. Ollie Wine said after the game, no excuses. We just got to be better. It's jeepers. Geelong and Geelong is no, easy game. Yeah. So I thought they did very well and, they've lost their last 4, but they've been insanely competitive.
Yeah.
Dropped one to Collingwood and this game, they're honourable losses, but we all know that footballers don't seem to like honourable losses. Doesn't count for much. Don't get the 4 points.
Football, Braden.
Give him half a point. Come on, give him half a point.
Well, there's a big star, Ollie Henry, old cat paws. He kicked 4 in the first few minutes. By the first few minutes of the second quarter. So he was on fire early, making the most of Hawkins being out at the moment. So it's good to see the young fella stepping up. And also Willie Rioli kicked 4.
Junior.
Big fan of Willie Rialdi Jr. Kicking 4, almost getting the bag on the day, and kept him in the game for most of it. So, yeah, it was a great contested game back and forth. But I will say one thing about Port: they had 6 changes in this game. Obviously, we know the Jones and O'Leary situation.
What did they go out with? What?
You wouldn't believe it. They had
just a rest.
Resting their face. Miles Bergman and Jeremy Finlayson both went out early with illness, and then Trent McKenzie goes down with a knee injury in the first 10 minutes. So they were held back essentially with some of the changes and the outs. And then also, as you mentioned, a little bit of a head knock problems, right? We had Todd Marshall. He went out for a mark. I think he landed on the back, flicked his head, hit the ground. And you wouldn't believe it. The doctors came out and said, Todd, come with us. We're going to take you to a secret space underneath the GMHBA stadium. We're going to assess you for this little thing we call concussion.
Well, there you go.
They've learned their lesson. Well done. Although he did come out playing, kick 2 goals after that. So who knows? We'll see if he comes up with a headache in a week. Anyway.
Have you done the concussion protocols before?
I've done the tests and stuff. And then,
You do the pre-test, but have you had to do a test in a game?
Not recently. I think you have to do like the alphabet backwards and a few other things and the months of the year. But the problem is, do the Wordle of the week.
Jeez, half the boys would be struggling if it was any math questions or something.
Half the time, some injuries though. Jack Henry was substituted out because of a foot injury. I think it's the opposite foot to the problem he had last time with it. So
I hate injuries this time of the year.
It's gotta be frustrating. But Geelong came home, kicked 4 of the last 5 goals. And I'm going to get a shout out and an apology at the same time, Braden. Radicalia.
They're rare.
Look, I was on your bandwagon very early.
You got on early, and then I feel like you got embarrassed because there was a bad performance. So then you jumped off quicker than anyone ever jumped off a person ever.
Did a little bit of time in the VFL, but then he was back this weekend, dominating the air like I knew the big man would. And I'm back on the train.
See?
Back on the train. Choo-choo, Radicalia.
Hey, sometimes you just got to do a little stint back in the VFL, Mace, and it all comes good.
I get it, Braden. I understand. I'm living it right now. Okay, shut up. Anyway, so Port have lost 4 in a row after 13 straight wins, and they play GWS at home next week.
So there's a few of these that can be rounded up into the same question. Is it, a week or 2 ago, it was an anomaly. It was like this one-off, they just dropped this game or whatever. Now it's 4 in a row. Is it a trend or is it?
I'm going to go no. They had 6 changes to people they needed, and they didn't have their full team, and they still kept up with Geelong at home. So I think that was quite an important fight. If they would have just fallen over and just rolled over, there'd be a lot more questions. But the fact they're fighting with 6 outs is, I still got to give credit to them. I think they're still one of the top teams and going to go really well this year.
Now, hopefully GWS probably a bit better on the road at the moment, so maybe keep her on the road because GWS v Sydney, Battle of the Bridge. Unfortunately, my boys, the Giants, came up short against bigger brother. It was just a blip. This is the anomaly that I'm talking about. This is the anomaly that I'm talking about. My
sons are out, so this is all on you, homeboy.
We got to carry this home. So obviously, no Buddy out with his calf, retired. Pretty long out. But his understudies stood up in Big Haydos McLean and the Amati party. I can't wait. I want him to kick 5 because we got to have something special for the Amati party.
The Amati party. We're going to have freaking cannons and stuff going off in here and confetti cannons. It's going to be great.
But doesn't this help? When you go in 23 times inside 50 and you kick 11 in the first half, that's pretty damn efficient.
Yeah, it's pretty efficient, I would say.
Like going in and kicking a goal 50% of the time.
That is insane to think.
You'd just be bombing it in, wouldn't you?
You would, 100%. And they were smashing it in the first one. Very, like you said, very, very efficient. But GWS, credit to them. They came back in the second half, and unfortunately they couldn't prevail, but it was a bit of an arm wrestle back and forth. And the Swans are 4 in a row and hosting Suns next week. But we got to talk about this. There was a couple goals during the game. Freak goals. We had Errol Golden and Isaac Heaney goals, and the second were just 40 meters out, check side, full pace, just absurd shit. I don't even know. And it's just the confidence and the audacity to do this by Golden I love it. Absolutely love it.
He's had a crazy year.
He's insane.
He started racking up numbers earlier in the year, and then it was some of these wingers, it's you can get off the chain every now and then, but now he's just, every week he's having 30, kicking 2 or whatever, and it's
ridiculous. Well, he had 32 disposals this weekend, kicked 2. And he also essentially had man of the match, the Brett Kirk medal.
Now, I asked you pre-podcast if you ever saw Brett Kirk play.
I have seen him before, but for different reasons.
Yeah, you saw him on the Channel 7. You thought he was a Channel 7 guy.
Yeah, I thought he was. So he probably got sacked after the most infamous meme we've ever seen.
He was my idol growing up. Not the big, flashy, player. He was just a run-with, grinding out tagger.
Would you say he's a pump-up guy?
A pump-up. He's not. He's a very spiritual guy. And that's the origin. That's why they're like, you're a captain, full of like a spiritual leader. Get out there and motivate all of Australia with the greatest pump-up speech of all time. But we'll probably script it for you so it looks nice and weird. Let's jump into this one. One of our favourite teams, North Melbourne versus regular Melbourne, not central Melbourne. And it was a bit of a, I can't imagine the Melbourne supporters, they probably would have dropped their crackers and quince paste because North came out of the gate strong. Had them up 35-9. Quarter time break. What the hell's going on?
North was like, hey, we've been talking about this Tassie thing ever since then. We've been putting up battles. Hey, we're home. We're in the home game. We're down in Hobart. It's cold as shit.
That's where you just drag them down there.
And also, Clarko, 400th game as coach. So they've got him back at the helm. So it was his first game back. So first quarter, a bit hyped up. Big coach is back. They said, boys, we're on here. We are on. And who was it out of all these people, Brayden? Who would you think would kick 3 goals against Melbourne?
Well, Eddie Ford.
Of course. Honk.
Which we all like Eddie Ford because he was the one talking smack to James Sicily earlier in the year and everyone, do something before you talk something.
Yeah.
Shut up. He's bringing some excitement to the game and I'm sure that his teammates absolutely love it. But I don't think that was the man that you've been talking about, Mace.
Who's that?
Who kicked 3 goals?
Who kicked 3 goals? No, Ford kicked 3 goals. And
I thought you were talking about Picket.
Oh, my boy Picket. That's just like that's a rhetorical question.
I just gave you the big Picket. Setup.
My bad. I was looking at the stat sheet wrong. No, Picket, my boy, he's kicking from all over. He's making Zebo look ridiculous, just absolutely breaking ankles from the corner and then kicking snaps. I mean, this man's unstoppable. Is he the best small forward in the league? Of course, yes. Rhetorical question again. The Picket is it. There's no one else. There's Picket, and then there's nothing.
Oh, there's Collingwood small forwards, but they're just outside of those.
No, Collingwood small forwards also, but everyone knows this. I love Picket to the hills and back. He is the man, the myth, and a legend. And he was absolutely dominated over the weekend. Kicked 3, kicked a few snaps, kicked 1 on the boundary from like 40. Just any chance he gets at goals, you just going, it's probably going to go through. I don't care what angle. I don't care how he's kicking it. The thing's probably going through the goals.
And Jack Siebel obviously retiring at the end of the year. And it's moments like that where you're like,
might call that early.
Not missing this. But there was a moment because obviously last week, Harry Petty, Big Harrison Petty, what are we, Free Falling? And whatever song you ended up trying to sing.
Don't remember, but it was very bad.
I won't back down.
Won't back down, that's what it was. Yes.
Well, he was, the Lord and Savior last week. He returned from the heavens to save Melbourne's forward line. And 1 week later, how quick everything turns. He went down in the 3rd. And now he needs to look at another replacement for the replacement. So the shit has been happening at a rapid pace to finish this because, 4 or 5 weeks ago, it was a 2-horse race and there may as well not be any other team in the competition. And now we're looking at it and it's just chaos.
It's very interesting what's going on. Obviously, with Petty going down, they got to find a forward to fill a spot. Now, who's the 2 forwards that are playing in the 2s right now? You got Ben Brown and Brodie Grundy. So
2 of the nicest men on the planet Earth.
Greatest men in them. Amazing humans, right? And now Simon Goodwin has to pick one of them to probably fill the place of Harrison Petty. So it's going to be real interesting this week with what he does there. But, it's also 3 games till finals, essentially. You probably want to lock the team in pretty soon and try to figure out what's going on. So that's going to be a massive call for Melbourne and their future to see kind of what happens.
Watch this space.
Yep.
Have you ever played at Casey Fields?
Casey Fields, yeah. Have played down there during COVID times.
Long way away.
Grim.
Long way away.
Very grim.
The weather always seems to be crap out there too.
That's how I became friends with Ned Reeves. He had to give me a jumper back because I think his cousin or something like that wanted to be me for Mad Monday. So I finally got that back last week. Thanks, mate.
I heard you whinging about it on the podcast.
Probably.
Let's jump into the St Kilda Carlton game. Saints were so bloody close. They had them. They had them on the ropes and Carlton just,
said, we're here.
Got out of it. They got out of it in exciting fashion and they are one of those momentum teams. Once the ball starts rolling, it turns into a big boulder. What's that? What was that?
Snowball.
What's that movie? With the dude and he's running away from the boulder. Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones and the Lost Ark or something like that.
That's it.
That's it.
That's the guy.
It's great.
That's Carlton.
That's great media by us.
Carlton is that guy. Indiana Jones, but whatever the actor's called.
And the boulder is everyone piling onto them and everything's go shit.
His name's Harrison something too. Harrison Ford. Yeah.
A lot of Fords in this episode.
A lot of Harrisons. We just had Harrison Petty. Anyway, we're talking about footy here,
footy,
mate.
Sorry, go back to that. Yeah. Carlton sitting 5th on the ladder. Who would have guessed that? You think back to like midway through the year, everyone's on their ass about goal kicking and how they're doing terrible and everything else. Now they're 5th on the ladder. And Carlton's giving the big old bird to all them motherfuckers.
Well, you do say that, but the guy that was missing all the goals hasn't been playing. So they fixed it all up. Apparently they did have we talked about they need to just have drinks going into the bye period, and they did it.
Did they?
Yeah.
As you would, though. I mean,
and it fixed everything. Note to any coaches out there, if you're playing a bit shit, get on the piss.
Few Eskies, few coolers, whatever you want to call them.
What do you call them again?
Coolers.
No, what's the stubby holders?
Stubby holders. Koozies, my bro. A few koozies underneath or over the top of the beers. Sit down in a circle and have a bit of fun.
Kumbaya.
That sounds so gross. St. Kilda kicks 4 goals to 1 in the second term and then only 1 goal in the second half. So, like you said, they were up and then they kind of weren't able to hit the scoreboard in the second half and Carlton took advantage.
Should have had a Dare Ice coffee, get that energy back, but they couldn't get it up and running.
It's desperate for sponsors by the sound of that.
Unfortunately, couldn't get across the line, but we're unbiased here. So fortunately for Carlton, they could get across the line.
And this is what we talked about earlier. Charlie, how many did he kick?
6, 7, 8, 9?
1. So Tex kicks 2 and Charlie kicks 1. Very quiet weeks for the Coleman leaders. And Charlie's only 6 ahead, and it's 68-63. So with a few games left in the season, it's still wide open. If Charlie's only kicking 1 this week and Tex is kicking a few, Tex can come back and pip a few off him, I think. And who knows what's going to happen. But also, King returns and he kicked 2, which is a good sign for St. Kilda. Big King back. But Wiedering also, who played on him, had 9 intercepts and 3 contested marks. So it was a big battle down there in the forward line or the back line, depending on what team you support. But a very entertaining one, no doubt.
Good point. Let's move on to Freo Brisbane. Another nail biter. Thought Brisbane were going to cook this one.
Never know what's going to happen in the West.
So flag mantle officially over. You have to say they were already, behind the 8 ball, but they've got one in Luke Jackson, 44, not quite a plumber. But
close.
Kicked a goal, 24 touches, probably a pretty good game for, a young tall. But
it is.
I think they can take a little bit out of this year, but probably overall pretty disappointing season for Fremantle. But the Lions, this win is one that they desperately needed given the state of the top 4 at the moment. They're all on the same points. Still 2 games ahead, Collingwood, but 2nd, 3rd and 4th. All just, fumbling and falling over each other.
I mean, even the percentage is interesting because the Lions are 3rd ahead of the Power and also 1.1% behind the second place Demons. So it's very close on percentage also there between the top 4.
Which is what's, the costly loss for Port, the 4 in a row. Now their percentage isn't very good. It's going to be interesting for them. They need a couple of big wins, but we'll see how we go. Freddie, I want to talk about this because
one of my favorite players. I mean, Pickett's up there. Don't get me wrong, but this man, the fact they can do a backflip celebration just makes me love him. I mean, I don't even care what he does. If he does a backflip to start the game, to go through the banner, unreal. I'm just throwing ideas out there, brother.
Just do backflip, halftime entertainment, grand final. Get him doing the backflips. Cancel the sprint.
It's the sprint.
But he last week, obviously, from the pocket, kicked a crazy drop punt. And I don't even know how it went through still. Well, he one-upped himself from last week to this week.
Under pressure, too.
Kicking a banana, both in crazy important stages of the game.
He was less than a minute ago. He gets the handball outside to the corner, the corner. We talked about that last week, to the boundary. And he just bananas one into the freaking, just absurd. The confidence to do that with a minute left, game on the line, and he slotted it. Absolute gun. He's one of my favorite players to watch. And unfortunately, though, the Lions came back and they ended up, I think Charlie Cameron set up Hipwood and they essentially were able to get up by 8 points and that kind of got them over the line. But Fremantle, didn't go down without a fight. They knew that their season was up in the, was up for grabs in this game, and they were able to put the fight up, but couldn't get over the line. And Brisbane now top 4, and Fremantle officially done.
Now let's get into one of the 2 games, Collingwood games this weekend. Hawthorn versus the Magpies. Upset loss, I would say. Hawthorn underdogs, 105, Collingwood 73, and there was a fair bit that came out of this game. Obviously, the injury to Nick Dacos is probably headlining it. Bit of a fracture in the kneecap. Doesn't require surgery, which is, a little bit of a silver lining. Right? So it's a rest and recovery, but they're saying 6 weeks. Now,
which leads us to the prelim, I think he can play.
Prelim. Maybe earlier. Do they still have that bye, pre-finals?
I still have pre-final buys. I think even with that, I think it's around the prelim time.
Jeepers.
So still have to get to a prelim to be able to have that opportunity, which is interesting, but it does put a big question mark around the whole, Brownlow and everything else, but it is a massive injury for us, unfortunately. I got to give a shout out, though. Hawthorn's retro kicks, pretty cool.
Yeah, the kit can't get much worse with the brown and yellow.
Brown and yellow is a very interesting choice of colors, but they did kick the first 5 goals. It felt like the rest of the game we really tried to play catch up. Now, very different from their last week, right? We all knew about Mitchell essentially giving them a spray at quarter time after they had given up 9 goals in the first quarter. And then this week they end up kicking 5 goals in the first quarter. So they've changed it around. Who knows what a spray will do to you with that team? But they were able to get a hot start, and it was tough for us to try to catch up after that.
To Hawthorn's credit, they looked great.
They kicked the first 3 goals of the fourth quarter, and that was kind of one of the things everyone thought, oh, maybe the Collingwood would come back, blah, blah, blah. But after they kicked those first 3, it was a tough ask to come back from there. And we had the Nick Dacos, Tom Mitchell, Nathan Murphy all finished on the bench at the end of the game. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of what the ramifications of that are going to be.
There's going to be a lot of magnet moving, and lucky that you've got a few players, a few teammates to come through.
I've got to mention this, though. James Sicily, 37 disposals, 19 marks, 3 goal assists, and 10 intercepts possessions. That is a freakish stat line.
Yeah, I imagine a lot of Collingwood fans would have been frustrated with that matchup or lack thereof, because I think he had 15 touches in the first quarter, and we all know how damaging Sicily is and how well he kicks and sets them up from defense. So, yeah, it would have been good to see something happen there or shut him down. Now, Jamie Elliott.
Still killing it, impressing every single week. I think he kicked 3 on the weekend. His shot from the boundary, ridiculous. And then he always just gives a celebration. I love it. He's like, what'd you expect?
It's always just so cold. He just stares at people.
Ice cold. And I'm a big fan of it. Love it. Absolutely love it. He had a good game. But, unfortunately, we couldn't get over the Hawthorn Football Club and lost by a fair margin on the weekend. And we'll look to lick our wounds, as they say.
Panic stations?
Nah. We'll be all right. Lick our wounds and head off to next week where we play Friday night Geelong, which would be a big game.
Big game. Friday night v Geelong. Geelong, another one that they need to win too. They need to be winning as many as they can. Now, that wasn't the only Collingwood game that happened on the weekend, because Mason Cox travelled down to Werribee, which is Avalon Airport Oval.
Yeah, I Googled that. I've been there before, old Werribee Oval last year, unfortunately. Had to Google Maps how to get out to that joint. And was able to play in the VFL, which was good fun, and play a bit more ruck, which was nice.
Now, let us know how this all played out, because I always eagerly await stories from the VFL, because it's not normal. It's weird shit happens,
to say the least.
There's always a interaction with a fan that's, doing something, or players that you don't know, or, your car gets bogged or something. Tell us some little stories from your time in Werribee.
Well, you can see on my eye, I was getting the eye stitched, right? So I got 4 stitches in my eye, and you love the people that help out, and the fans are amazing. So it is real kind of local footy, I guess you want to call it. And I'm sitting there getting my eyes stitched, and people are just walking in and out of the room as if it's like very casual, and asking people to sign autograph stuff and whatnot. And the kids outside, and this person, that person. I'm getting a needle in my head. I'm just like, this is chaos and very weird. And even the locker rooms are very different in the experience, pregame and everything else. I think I got there like 2 hours early, and I was like the only person there. So I'm like,
oh crap! I came to the wrong spot.
There's little things like that, but there's plenty of trash talk, which is hilarious. Obviously, everyone gives you stick whenever you get dropped back down to the VFL. Which
fans and players.
For some reason I don't know if I should really get into that, but I was called, what was it, Elton John over the weekend, which is quite funny coming from the person and what they looked like. But it interesting. It's such a
because
funny.
you had your goggles on?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not 100% sure, to be honest.
It's a weird
But
sledge.
It's a very odd sledge. And it was not just a one-off. It was a consistent every single
comes out.
5-10 minutes.
Tiny dancer.
Rockin' man.
That doesn't make any sense
I
at
don't
all.
know, but this is VFL. You just got to laugh through it. And it was good. It was good to get a game up there. Unfortunately, we did lose. Got smacked pretty hard, but it was an interesting experience again.
So almost plumber. Your stat line reads 15 touches, 48 hit-outs, and a goal.
Yeah. Well, I got pulled up to the forward line in the fourth quarter, and I wasn't too happy because I knew you'd come on here saying, did he get the plumber? Did he get to 50?
It was close.
I knew I was close. I was like, either I'm over it or I'm like right near it or something like that. I got put into the forward line. It was the coach's decision. I think Craig wanted to see me in the forward line a bit. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to get to the plumber stat, even though it would have been if I would have played like 2 more minutes in the Rock, probably would have got it. So it's kind of like frustrating in that sense. But
I could say Ruckman nominate and you're like, yes.
and I'm like sprinting down for the forward line for a D50. So it's good though. But it's an interesting experience, and we'll continue to try to put our best foot forward and see how we go.
Tell us a little bit. It's fascinating. You probably don't. It's not the funnest. It's not the funnest experience, but let's dig in a little deeper. How is the whole experience out there you got to learn who the hell these guys are that you're playing with? I know you probably like to pretend that you know them all, but you're out there and it's like trying to fit into a game plan, trying to fit into a team, trying to mesh with the boys. It's a very different vibe from you've had a long stretch at AFL level now. Was it different getting back there?
It's different, man. It's a different pace. I think it's probably the biggest thing you realize, like different pace, different skill level, things like that, and
it doesn't make it easier just going back there because everything changes.
It's not as efficient. Whenever you play AFL, you kind of it's more predictable where the ball's going to land and everything else, where in the VFL, it's a bit more chaotic as you'd expect, like the skill level is not as high. So you'd expect to be more mistakes and the ball not to be as easily read and everything else. So it's, it's unique. It's different. I think like one thing I really realized over the time of the weekend was like the thing that really stuck out was the people that are on the ground whenever you're doing the quarter time breaks and halftime and stuff. And it was just like, it's almost because we're losing. It was like infuriating, like you just want to play. You don't want any other distractions. So that was kind of one of the biggest differences, I guess. But yeah, it is what it is.
Before we do wrap up and look ahead to next week, just for a little bit, what did happen to your eye? Was it a specific incident or just
I got punched in the face? Yeah, you wouldn't believe it. It happens all the time, I feel like.
Player or a fan?
Player.
Coach?
Yeah, probably, I don't know. Picket got touched over the weekend from the boundary. Some Werribee person had a few too many tins. Maybe.
Josh Fraser's like I said, go forward.
Go forward. Forward.
Stop trying to get 50 hit outs.
No, it was it was Errant just like tried to spoil and hit me in the face. He actually apologized after it happened. So I think they were up by about 30 at that point. So but yeah, no, it was an incident that just kind of happens, and I didn't think it was that bad until I took a shower and I looked in the mirror and I was like, I can see the inside of my head. So great, this is a fantastic day.
They just whip it out and stitch it up there on the spot.
Yeah, just stitch it in after the game. They just take you into the doctor's room and stitch it up.
Any painkillers?
No, you just get a little numbing sensation, numbing needle, and then just stick stitch. You're done.
Very staunch. Well, let's look ahead because it is getting very close to finals. Carlton, Melbourne, massive game next week. Carlton, all the momentum. Melbourne has a few things to tinker with, ins and outs, injuries and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I think Chera comes back for Carlton, which he was having a blinder in the Collingwood game before he had to get subbed out with a hamstring injury. Port Adelaide need to get back to winning ways over in Adelaide with GWS, who beat Adelaide there not only a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, it's going to be a big game from them. Absolutely biggest game of the round, obviously. Collingwood, Geelong, Friday night,
massive one.
Absolute blockbuster. MCG. If you don't have tickets and you can still get them, I'd get on that, snap them up quick because they're going to be sold out. We'd love to see Big Mason Cox back in the forward line, maybe back in the ruck, maybe sweeping out of defence, a bit of run and carry off half back.
I'll take anything to get back in the team.
Oh, maybe you could fill Nick Dacos's role. I'm sure they're looking for
on
someone.
Ball. That's what they're looking for. A big 7-footer on ball.
Big elite skills.
That's it. There are some big games coming up this weekend. Obviously, the finals hunt continues for some of these teams, and it's going to be important for them. So it's going to be exciting a week ahead. And but that's it from us. We're going to close it up there.
What are you looking forward to?
What am I looking forward to? I'm looking forward to Carlton versus Melbourne this week coming up. That's going to be fun. That's going to be real interesting for both teams to see how they go. Carlton sitting 5th on the ladder, very important for them.
Delicious. I'm looking forward to a nice night's sleep, hopefully, at the end of this week.
Yeah, you've got that exciting thing we can't talk too much about.
It's
but
getting close. I reckon I can announce it.
Visually see it soon, which is going to be pretty cool.
Announce it next week.
Next week, okay. A few more things we got DIYs you got to do. All right. Well, that is it. We'll wrap it up there with that little nugget we've got. A little golden nugget from Braden Cox there.
Jump on the merch.
Jump on the merch, everyone. Give us a follow. Thank you, everyone, so much for all the love. We keep feeling it every single week. We see people with the merch. We see people talking about it, and we love that everyone is spreading the word because y'all are freaking legends. Listen to this shit. The best. Absolute legends. So thank you so much. Anyway, we'll wrap it up there, everyone. Thanks so much for listening, and look out next week for another episode covering everything that happens in the IFL.
Yeah.